Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into the incredibly dramatic, rapid-fire geopolitical tech moves that are unfolding right now in the summer of 2026. What we're seeing is two global superpowers making high-stakes decisions that are quite literally reshaping our entire technological landscape.
Which naturally brings up a massive question for all of us. Are we actually entering a new Cold War? But instead of being fought with nuclear warheads and traditional military posturing, this modern conflict is being waged with silicon, algorithms, and code. The intense tit-for-tat escalation we are witnessing today suggests a global great power competition that is evolving way faster than anyone really predicted.
To give you an idea of the pace here, in late June 2026, the U.S. government made a highly calculated decision to unlock and deploy a wildly powerful cybersecurity AI model for its critical infrastructure. And the retaliation? It was immediate. Just weeks later, in July, Beijing moved to restrict global access to its own cutting-edge AI models. So these aren't just your standard software updates. These are major strategic geopolitical maneuvers.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll hit the 2026 AI escalation, then defining the AI Cold War, third, the semiconductor choke point, fourth, subsidies and trade bans, and finally, a bifurcated digital future. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Section 1, the 2026 AI escalation. Okay, so on June 27th, the U.S. government lifted a ban on a highly specialized cybersecurity AI called Mythos 5, developed by Anthropic. Now, the backstory here is absolutely fascinating. Just 2 weeks prior to this, the model had actually been recalled because its safety guardrails could be bypassed. But after U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick confirmed patches with Anthropic's CTO, they aggressively redeployed it. They handed it to over 100 government agencies and strategic companies, specifically to protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. And crucially, the U.S. even allowed non-U.S. citizens working at these companies to use it. That signals a massive push to prioritize operational collaboration over strict lockdown. Meanwhile, Anthropic's other model, Fable 5, remains entirely restricted.
Almost instantly, Beijing fired back. By July 8th, Chinese authorities were holding high-level talks with tech giants. We're talking Alibaba, ByteDance, and ZAI, looking to curb overseas access to their top AI models. This was a direct, reciprocal response to the U.S. deploying models like Mythos. Beijing's objective here? They want to enforce tougher penalties for tech theft and safeguard their national security. Honestly, it's a textbook move to prevent foreign rivals from leveraging Chinese-developed intelligence.
Which brings us to Section 2. Defining the AI Cold War. The overarching term policy experts are using for this is the artificial intelligence Cold War. This narrative first popped up around 2018 in an article by Nicholas Thompson and Ian Bremmer. Basically, it describes a great power competition between the US and China that is waged entirely through AI technology, code, and the microscopic semiconductors that power them, rather than through traditional weapons. To really put the severity of this into perspective, think about how former U.S. Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson described this fracturing of the global tech ecosystem. He called it an economic iron curtain. It's a heavy, powerful phrase for sure, but it perfectly maps this modern tech conflict onto a historical framework that we all instantly recognize.
But the truly fascinating part is that we can actually quantify this competition. The Epoch Capabilities Index tracks this arms race, and there is a very measurable gap. Right now, U.S. proprietary models, think GPT-5 and Gemini 3 Pro, have a consistent lead, while Chinese open-weight models like DeepSeek R1 and Qwen 2.5 are trailing. But here's the catch. They are only trailing by an average of about 7 months. 7 months! That is a razor-thin margin in an industry that literally moves at lightning speed.
Moving on to Section 3, the semiconductor choke point.
70%. 70% of the world's semiconductors are either produced in or pass through Taiwan. It's wild to think about, but this single geographic location, heavily reliant on giant chipmakers like TSMC, is the absolute bottleneck for the entire global AI arms race. It creates massive anxiety around supply chains because you simply cannot run these AI models without this physical hardware.
So how did we end up with this bottleneck? Well, let's look at the timeline. Back in 2017, China published its AI development plan, aiming for global leadership by 2030. In 2019, the U.S. responded by pressuring the Netherlands to restrict a company called ASML from exporting highly advanced chip-making machines to China. Then in 2022, the U.S. passed the massive CHIPS Act to onshore their own manufacturing. And now in 2026, we have these aggressive tit-for-tat software lockdowns.
Every single move is a direct reaction to the last.
That leads perfectly into Section 4, subsidies and trade bans.
Because governments aren't just using trade bans, they are opening their wallets, big time. The U.S. CHIPS and Science Act represents a mind-boggling $280 billion in total planned spending, with $53 billion allocated strictly for U.S. semiconductor manufacturing. Not wanting to be left behind, the European Union launched its own CHIPS Act, pumping 30 billion euros into domestic manufacturing to achieve strategic autonomy. So, by throwing money at giants like Intel, TSMC, and Micron Technology, governments are essentially trying to buy their way to technological security.
But what happens when the market anticipates a total breakdown in global trade? Panic. The tech industry has been forced into full-on survival mode. Companies are actively hoarding semiconductors right now because they are terrified of supply chain disruptions. They are doing whatever it takes to ensure they have the physical hardware needed to keep their data centers running in case that iron curtain slams shut. And you know, that directly impacts the global availability of the everyday electronics we all rely on.
And finally, Section 5, a bifurcated digital future.
Analysts like Hemant Tineja and Fareed Zakaria suggest all of this heralds a complete departure from the single, unipolar global internet we all grew up with. Instead, they predict a new world order characterized by two entirely parallel, competing digital ecosystems, one US-aligned and one China-aligned. Moving forward, countries, and potentially even consumers, will essentially have to choose which technological ecosystem their societies are going to integrate with.
But this deep division comes with a steep cost. Researchers at MIT Technology Review are warning that destroying international scientific collaboration is detrimental to everyone. If the world's brightest minds can no longer share research or collaborate on open-source projects, the overall pace of human technological progress just slows down. A divided world is simply less equipped to solve complex global problems.
And that leaves us with a critical question to end on today. As the U.S. deploys models like Mythos and China locks down its own cutting-edge AI in response, we really have to ask ourselves, how will this technological iron curtain impact the future of global innovation? Will this intense, high-stakes competition spark the greatest era of discovery in human history, or will a fractured world ultimately hold us back? It's a reality we absolutely need to watch closely. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.